Hello, everyone. There was a father who is being charged with child endangerment. Um, he actually is being charged with this because there were minor children playing with kitchen knives used as swords. And one of the minor children was uh, injured and sent to the hospital. And the minor was hospitalized after being stabbed by his 5-year-old cousin while playing sword fights with a kitchen knife in Beaumont. And now Beaumont, this is not Beaumont, Texas. This is Beaumont, California. Um, and so, um, and so, what happened is that the child was taken to the hospital, and the hospital is who called in the injury, around 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon on a Sunday. And there was this past Sunday is when it was called in, and so to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. And so the victim was being treated for non-life-threatening injuries, and because it's a minor, they didn't disclose the age of the victim, but officers spoke with the father and the victim, and police were able to determine that the minor was stabbed once in the stomach by a 5-year-old while playing with kitchen knives. Um, and so the father is expected to be charged with child endangerment with the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. Now, I want to say this because when it comes down to good parenting, I know that none of us, if we've been parents and we were raising children, none of us are perfect. No, not one. But again, we have to be the best ally for our children and the children that we are supervising, the children that are in our presence, in our care, under our guardianship. We have to protect those children. We also need to make good decisions for the children that we are raising or have children in our care, in our custody or custodial care. Now, the cousin might have just been visiting. It may have been just over visiting. School is being let out. The days are starting to become warmer. People are starting to do things because we know the days are longer. And so you may have more relatives come and visit, or more people at your house, guests or whatnot have you. However, we still need to make good decisions that will not place children at risk or harm. And when I came across this article and I read it, and right away, there was just some things that stuck out to me. First of all, why would you allow, intentionally or not intentionally, why would you allow children to play with knives? Now, we're not talking about plastic knives, where you get plastic knives with takeout, and we're not talking about toy knives. We're talking about kitchen knives. We don't know if they were big knives, small knives, how sharp they were, how pointed they were, but does that really matter? They were kitchen knives, and even a butter knife can harm you. We call them butter knives, and then there are steak knives, and then there's knives that cut meat. When you're out here preparing your meat to put it on the grill or to bake it or to sear it in the skillet. There are a lot of different knives, even butcher knives. I mean, I cannot begin to tell you how many different types of knives there's out there because I'm not a knife expert, but I'm sure there are people that can tell you that are into knives and that can tell you all the different type of kitchen knives that are out there, and you can also look up the kitchen knives yourself. But why would you intentionally or non-intentionally allow children to play with kitchen knives and use them as swords? I know that they sell fake play knives in the store, unless they've taken them off the market. I don't have a small child anymore. And swords, they sell them. But I also thought about the video games that are out here and how children are watching a lot of violent video games. And in those video games, as you see this cartoon, this that I character that I put up here, to show you, just a picture of, you know, what it might look like, right? So with that being said, again, I see and I am aware of video games that are not very wholesome, that children are allowed to, to play, to engage in, to watch, and even children will mimic what they see from video games and even television shows, because a lot of things have went left instead of going right towards righteousness, right? And so who's to say that this was allowed, and maybe the father thought it was, and this is alleged, so I don't get me wrong. Did he think it was funny? Did he think it was cute? Did he think it was harmless, that it wasn't dangerous? What was going through this father's mind for children to be playing with kitchen knives used as swords? How easy would it have been to go out and purchase some play fake things to play with, instead of trying to bring something alive that they might have seen on television or a video game or something like that. I'm not saying that's what happened, but there's a lot of questions that I had, and to address those, I'm like, wait a minute. Kitchen knives, when I was growing up, people did get toys, toy knives, and they even play swords. So, they played with them, but no one was injured, no one was hurt. And so to use real live kitchen knives, because they became live when they were being used, right? Okay, so as swords to play, and these are minor children, so quite naturally in a child's mind, if you're pumped up or you're mimicking what happens on videos or video games, you're going to by any means necessary. And these are children, a 5-year-old, and you can, and I was discussing this, and it's like, well, children don't always do what you tell them. Well, we know children don't always do what you tell them. If you've raised children or had to supervise children, you're teachers, you're some type of counselor, or what do you call it, mentor or coach, or someone on the school playground, whatever your title is, and you're dealing with or working with children, administrators, whatnot, in a school system, or just even foster care, whatever or raising children, whatever your title may be, still, we know children don't listen. But it's still no excuse to not address it in a manner, that does not bring harm or abuse. It's still, we as parents, or whatever title you have, you still have a responsibility and obligation to supervise children. And we know that the older the child gets, the less supervision that they need, depending on, what they're capable of. And I'm going to say that, and their maturity level, okay? Because some children are mature and they do what's right with no problem and walk upright, and then there are children that you constantly have to stay after. That's just the way it is. And if you have more than one child, you know that each child is different. And so I grew up in a household of brothers. They were different, and, everyone was different, had their own personality and things like that. And even I had my own personality, and so we know that some children, like I said, you have to stay after, and some you just tell them one time to stop doing something or do this, and they do it. And some children you got to tell multiple times, almost threatening to spank them or something, or stand them in the corner, and I'm not talking about abuse, so let's be clear. But, you have to discipline the child, to get them to do what you said do or don't do or stop doing. And, like you tell a young child, don't touch the stove, it's hot, and they go ahead and touch it, and they see for themselves that the stove was hot. That's why it's important that children should not be in the kitchen by stoves and dishwashers and and sinks, because some children can climb up on counters. They know how to get a chair and climb up on a counter and turn the hot water on or the sink water on, and it could be hot and scald them, because some hot water is very hot. And then there are children that'll climb up under the cabinet and hide in there, or get in the dishwasher, or even climb in the oven. Or even children, you don't let them play around washers and dryers, depending on where your washer and dryer is at. You have to always supervise children, especially young children. And so them being able to use kitchen knives, however they got a hold of them, somebody was not paying attention. Someone was not watching them closely, monitoring what they were doing, for them to get a hold of some kitchen knives to use as swords. And now a child is in the hospital recovering from a stomach wound, and they said stab, a stomach wound, because of something like this. And I don't know if the father was watching this, sat around and watched it and thought it was funny or cute. I don't know that. So I don't want to say that he did that, because it doesn't say he did. And I'm sure that it might be an update or not, but they are going to be charging him with child endangerment. And you know what? Like I said in another video, sometimes people have, and I'm going to say this, parents, and I'm going to say it, they have distorted views and mindsets of what is funny, what is cute, and everybody was not raised a certain way to raise children in the manner that, the fruit of the spirit type thing, the fruit of the spirit, wholesomeness, peace, love, protection. Some people don't know that. Some people don't have that. They wasn't raised in that environment. And then some people, again, have a distorted view of how they're going to raise their children, and they don't go along. They say that that's the stereotype, raising them in a wholesome manner, and they won't go along with that, and they'll put them at risk or in harm's way, and think, well, that's not funny to me. I mean, that's not harmful, and to us, it's like, that's harmful. Why are you doing that? That's not funny. They might even laugh about it and say, well, ha, 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 they think it's funny. And so what I'm saying is, everybody doesn't raise their children the same way. And sometimes it takes the state to get involved, or the CPS to get involved, or the authorities to get involved, to make sure that children are being protected and not put in harm's way. And the other thing is that the hospital, if you take a child to a hospital for an injury, guess what? They are mandated reporters, and they are going to report it to the appropriate authorities, and they will look into it. There will more than likely be an interview, an investigation. They may even arrest you on the spot, depending on the situation and what the outcome is. And if they're able to talk to witnesses and victims, the victims involved, they may arrest you on the spot. So you have to be very careful about what you allow your children to do, and how you are raising your children and supervising them. And whether it was intentional or not intentional, it is still considered child endangerment, because somewhere they were allowed to get a hold of kitchen knives, use them, and play with them as toy swords. And one of the children was resulted in an injury that led the child to being taken to the hospital with a stab wound to the stomach. And then the hospital staff had to get involved and contact the authorities. That's just like if a child falls down the steps or is pushed, they have to examine those injuries, and they may or may not be consistent with an accidental fall down the steps, or maybe a throw or push down the steps. And so you have to really be cognizant of, these things when you have children under your care or supervision. And so again, I was like, what? You are allowing, or I don't know if you allowed, whoever you are, the father, so I don't want to say that, but somewhere, you intentionally allowed. Because my thing is like this, I could be wrong and I stand corrected, but when you lack supervising children, minor children, to me, whether it was intentional or non-intentional, there was some type of allowance being made. Because if you weren't there supervising them, then to me that they were allowed to get into stuff. They were allowed to use certain things as weapons, playing. And even if the person had to step away to take a phone call or restroom, those, I would have said, let me call you back. If it was a phone call, so you got it, or you have to go to the restroom, you know, no children should be playing with knives though. So even like I'm saying, if you got to step away, to do something, sit the children down, where they're safe. Don't let them keep playing and a child gets hurt. Even if it was some play toys or something, play swords, because you never know, they could have a sharp point on them. But just sit them down. If you got to take a phone call, say, hey, let me call you back, or send a text, because most phones allow you to send a text that I'll call you back, until the kid, but we don't want to leave kids, where I'm going, unsupervised. So that's all I'm saying is that, and they shouldn't have never been playing with kitchen knives. And I want to make that very clear, that they shouldn't have never been playing with kitchen knives, period, point blank. Okay. And no one's perfect. I wasn't perfect as a parent, and I don't believe any parent is perfect. But again, we have to be the best ally for children, who, and making sure that they are safe. And we should never give them tools or things that can harm other children. We should never allow them to play with them. And if they even have access, and if for some reason they get access to them and you witness that, you need to immediately take that stuff from them, take the, remove the item that's a threat, or, or putting the child at risk, remove it and have a conversation with the kids and let them know this is never to be used as a toy. These, and you can teach them what they're used for, but never to be used as a toy. Never be playing with these type of things. There are some takeaways. We have to sit down with children. But again, the child endangerment, whether it was intentional or not intentional, whether they got in the kitchen and got a hold of them and started playing with them, the endangerment comes in is because, again, as the parent, an adult or parent, the parents, adults are still responsible for what their children don't do, what they get into, what they don't, and even, during playtime, making sure that playtime is safe. And when it becomes too aggressive, or if it becomes to the point where another child can be harmed, or children can be harmed, it's time to stop that playtime. It's time to make sure, no one is being harmed by good, wholesome playtime. Because there is something called good, wholesome playtime where there's no violence involved. Good, wholesome playtime. Making sure that children are safe when they're playing, making sure that they will not be harmed, or their playtime doesn't lead to, intentional harm. And we know that accidents do happen, because when a child is out there learning to ride a bike, they might fall down on their bike. We know that's not intentional, because children most of the time will fall down when they're trying to ride a bike. But you are to go over there, get the child, nurture the child, encourage them, make sure they're safe, they're okay, and if they got a little scar, you go patch it up, you give them a hug. There's a lot of ways, but this is not the answer. Whoever you are listening, please don't ever allow your children to use, things that can harm other children when they're out there playing or harming each other. Because kitchen knives used as swords, wow, kitchen knives used as swords. That is crazy to me. But anyway, with that being said, you all leave your comments below. Let's get the conversation started on what you think. What are your views about this? And what do you think? Because I know a lot of people will probably like, well, how do you know he said this? How do you know he did that? How do you know he let this happen? I tried to cover all those bases. And if I missed anything, I stand corrected. But again, please, please, please protect the children. Be their best ally and advocate for the children. Do not allow children to go unsupervised. And when you see something, stop it, talk to them, address the issue. Please do not allow children to participate in things that can bring harm to themselves and to other children. Because when you do, and if it leads to some type of injury that requires emergency room visit, or urgent care visit, or hospitalization, guess what's going to happen? They are going to be reporting it to the authorities, because they are hospital staff, are mandated reporters, teachers are mandated reporters, social workers, counselors, even as you are mandated reporters, and there's other lists too. But anyway, mandated reporters. Okay, so with that being said, pastors, ministers, teachers, leaders, mandated reporters. So please, please, please be on your P's and Q's and protect the children. God bless you all on today.